Hello, Vanguard. Today is Tuesday, June the 30th, 2020, and this is Doing Things Differently and Learning Something New. I'm Jennifer Methvin. I'm the Chancellor at Arkansas State University in Beebe, and it's my honor to be with you here on today's episode. If you're following the show, then you know that my guest today was supposed to be faculty member Eddie Scrappin. Well, Eddie and his wife had the opportunity to slip away with their family and their children for a few days. So we've rescheduled Eddie to be the next guest after today. And as circumstances warranted, it was just the right thing for me to record an episode by myself today. So we'll still probably be about 15 minutes, maybe a little less. There won't be 5 questions. I just want to share some information with you about something I am learning and have learned during this pandemic that is timely right now. So June 30th, if you're watching this episode later, go back and look at some of the things that were highlighted in the news on June 29th and probably again today on the 30th. We are struggling, I think, a bit as a state and as a nation on how we're going to live with an opened up economy and this public health crisis. We're struggling a bit. I watched on the news last night a full-blown brawl at a restaurant because one set of patrons who had on masks asked another set of patrons who did not to respect them and please put on their masks. Now, it was a restaurant. It was actually a restaurant bar. Lots of factors there. But it is a little concerning that we're being given some pretty serious guidance by the Arkansas Health Department, the CDC, leaders from around our country, but we're struggling to heed that advice. And since it's not mandated in the state of Arkansas that you have on a face covering and some of those things, we're trying to do our best to respect one another. But there are these pockets of places where that's not happening. I'll share one with you. In a recent grocery store visit, which I am still very careful about doing, I try to go when things aren't so crowded. I mask up, I'm armed up with Germ-X, and I try to follow those signs to say which way you go down which aisle. In a recent visit, I met a family coming down the aisle that I was on. They were going against the flow of traffic that was indicated. A mom, a dad, 2, I would say 5, maybe 4, 3-year-old young children and a baby. No one had on masks, and it was quite obvious to me that the oldest little boy was a little scared of me because I did have on a mask. We passed. I turned toward the shelf, let them pass by me, continued on with my shopping. It's actually a pretty common thing. But I have to tell you that what I wanted to do was to pull that little boy aside and say to him, you know, I am in a job where I'm an essential worker, and I go to work every day, and I do have to interact with some people every day. I do so by social distancing and with a mask on, but I do have to interact with people. So this mask is in case I have that terrible virus that's out there right now. And this mask will be some protection for me passing it on to you. That's what I would want that young man to understand. That young man probably can't understand that, but I wish his parents would. You know, they're inconvenient, those masks. I wear glasses, guys, and when I put this mask on right here with these glasses, and I walk, and by the way, see my Vanguard mask? When I put this mask on and walk out into that humidity out there, these glasses fog up. This thing's a pain. I'm totally going to agree with you. And it is a small token of what I can do to try to protect others in case I myself am infected. But it's an inconvenience I take on. I think it's an inconvenience that young family would take on. If they had the privilege of reading a post that I read last night from a young family from my hometown where I grew up, the dad and that young family describing that they are 28 days post one of the family members getting the virus and them and their children going through that virus. If you read his post, I think if any other young people with young families who think, we're Teflon, it's going to be okay, not my family, not us. If they read this young man's post, I think you might think again about how we can respect what we're being asked to do. It's pretty simple, guys. We're being asked to wear a face covering when we're in public, and social distancing is not possible. We're being asked to wash our hands often, and when we don't have soap and water and can't wash our hands for 25-30 seconds, then we use Germ-X. We're being asked to social distance, stay at least 6 feet away from folks if at all possible, and to keep gatherings down to a minimum. That's what we're being asked to do, and it won't stop the pandemic, but it might protect some of the people that you love. So really the main reason I'm recording with you today is because I need to share with you a scare that has happened in my family. And while I think I was doing pretty good before this scare in trying to heed that advice and trying to lead ASU-Beebe in a set of protocol where we all, when we come to campus, heed that advice and follow that advice, I can tell you I'm going to be much more of a stickler now. The virus has gotten my attention. So on Father's Day, some of you all have heard me in other episodes talk about the fact that my mother is not doing well. And in fact, she is basically bedridden right now in a hospital bed in the living room of my home where my brother and sister and I grew up. She's bedridden there with some care coming in and out every day, and with my father there by her side every day, and me and my sister doing the best that we can to spend as much time as we can there with them and helping them. It's a very, very difficult thing to see your parent that way, and it's very difficult to have to render that kind of care. On Father's Day, ironically, 10 of us in the family gathered there, my mom and dad and 8 other members of the family, including my 1.5-year-old granddaughter, gathered for a couple hours at my parents' house to celebrate Father's Day, to try to bring a little joy. We did a great job, I think, of distancing, spreading out, staying out of one another's way. We probably weren't very careful. We didn't often have our masks on. And of course, some of us were rendering care directly to my mother. Helping her eat and those things that we have to do when she is there. On Tuesday of that week, one of my family members let us all know that 2 of their colleagues had just been sent home from work with fever. This family member is also an essential worker. On Wednesday of that week, this family member themselves began to have symptoms, and they spiraled pretty quickly. Those symptoms ramped up pretty fast. This family member was tested on Thursday of that week, and we all isolated because that's what you do, right? Now, to make this long, agonizing story short, I'll tell you it took several days to get this family member's results. This is a very difficult time, right? Because I had to think about some things. Although we did a lot right that day, we were there as a family. And if this person was sharing the virus on that day, it was going to have a large, large impact on my family. My mother getting this virus, I just can't think about that. My dad, who's there every day trying to render her care, that's difficult to think about. My 1.5-year-old granddaughter, my pregnant daughter-in-law, family members with asthma, weak immune systems. This is a little bit difficult to think about. The caregivers that are coming in and out of that home to take care of my parents, all of that was a little bit difficult to think about. It was also, Vanguard community, difficult to think about you. Your executive team has been working very hard, and while we certainly, without exception, put on our masks, social distance, and mostly meet by Zoom, we do, we're in the same space together some, and while it's spread out over here, some of the executive team have particular chairs when they come in to visit with me that they sit down in, and areas that we wipe for them. It is still true. That as they're up here trying to prepare for the fall semester and to prepare for students and to do the things that are right for this institution, that I may have brought the virus back to them. You might remember, if you are a member of the Vanguard employee community, you know that we did a send-off to one of our colleagues on Tuesday. We did a drive-through, social distancing, masks and gloves and the whole yard nines, drive-through muffins and coffee so that folks could drive up and spend a few minutes wishing Dr. Richard Counts well as he moves on as Chief Academic Officer at the University of Arkansas Community College at Morrilton. And by the way, we will miss Richard so much. It was a great morning. We got to visit with people that we haven't seen in a while. We spread it across quite a bit of time, but I personally served a great deal of the muffins. Had on a mask, had on gloves, had a tray, didn't touch any of the muffins except with my gloved hand, but still, that's a lot of people who would have been in the same space with me. And so if the family member who had COVID pass it on to me, I had the opportunity to pass it on to others that week. Well, again, long story short, and quite luckily, my husband Roger and I did a rapid test as soon as this family member's results came in, and we are negative. We are still being hyper careful. We're just a few days out from that 2-week window, but we're still being very careful, even though technically we're released because we have a negative test. I do think my family and I have been very careful, but even at that, what a scare that we just had, and what a ripple impact that could have had on people. And no one in that scenario was doing anything vicious, and no one was trying not to respect other people or to make other people sick. But it easily could have happened. I haven't slept a whole lot lately. You might can tell that. I'm thinking about what might have been. So I urge you, Vanguard community, it's simple guidance. Wearing a mask when you're in public, particularly when you cannot properly social distance or might accidentally not be able to socially distance. And try to socially distance. My goodness, anything we have in the plan for fall that involves people being in the same space together is totally centered around social distancing. Please wash those hands, wash them often. Don't gather in large crowds, and be exceptionally mindful of your own health. Fever, cough, anything like that, immediately. Don't go out in the public. Don't go to work. Get self-isolated. Call your healthcare provider and begin to take care of yourself and find out what's going on, if anything. You know, I've had terrible allergies these last 3 or 4 weeks. It was agonizing during the time we were waiting on these test results. Agonizing, because I have sinus issues. But, are those sinus issues or is that COVID? That's where we are, okay? So on June 29th, yesterday, I hope you saw a press release from us about the many plans that we have for fall to give students options for the way they might take their course instruction, to still be able to serve students in some face-to-face fashions where we need to, particularly in certain programs, or even those students who want to be served in some face-to-face fashions. Please go find and read that press release if you're an ASU-Beebe employee or student. It's in your email. It's on our COVID page. Remember, just go to asub.edu and click on the COVID information button up there. All of our updates are there. The very first click down accordion banner there is the latest updates from the chancellor, and it's there as our latest update yesterday and today of what's going on for the fall. We're doing a lot of work and a lot of planning. And I want us to be able to be in the position in Arkansas that some students can physically be on campus for part of their studies in the fall. But I have to tell you, a lot of what I'm seeing in the grocery stores and on the news doesn't make me overly optimistic. It only takes a few people who aren't heeding these guidelines to spread the virus among many and make this a much more difficult route. Last evening, I talked to my niece. She is also the mom. She and her husband have 2 young boys, and she works at a medical practice in the management area of a medical practice, not as a direct healthcare worker, but as the person who makes sure everybody gets paid and the insurance gets filed and the PPE supplies are there and all of those things. And she shared this story. She took her son to get his baseball pictures made. They were in a large barn. There were about 3 teams there. Okay. Parents, players, and coaches. She says she was one of maybe 10 people wearing a mask. And her words were, and this, my friends, is what's going to take us down. That's my fear as well. That's why I'm with you today asking you guys, put on your mask. Wipe down, keep those germs away, keep that Germ-X going when you can't wash your hands. Please, we are in this together. Maybe one of the things that we'll be doing differently, maybe one of the things that we can learn from this pandemic, that caring about one another, caring about strangers, caring about people that we politically totally disagree with, caring about other human beings. Maybe that's what we can learn to do better as a result of this pandemic. I sure hope so, because we're in this together. Okay. Great to be with you today, Vanguard community. I look forward to our next time, where I do believe we will have Mr. Eddie Sapratman visiting with us about the impact of this health crisis on he, his family, and his classroom, and I look forward to seeing you then. Thank you.